Hey new Tekken players, I hope you're all doing well. How am I doing, I hear you ask?
I'm in top condition!
Well, as someone who mainly plays King, Paul and Kazuya, I feel like a kid in a candy store, or a pig in a proverbial right now. Honestly, I can't decide if I prefer the Tekken 8 King or Kaz trailer the most, but either way, both of them are better than all the others by a long way in my opinion, and for the first time, I'm genuinely excited now for Tekken 8. Now the King trailer has dropped, I suspect there'll be an influx of new King mains, and so I thought I would do a quick guide for new King players, or King mains who may be stuck in the lower ranks. By the way, if you'd like to turn this into a series, please drop a comment below and let me know. For now though, I thought I would do a video about King's strongest move that new players almost never use. Although this will be aimed at King players, if you're not a King player, stay tuned, as the phrase goes, knowledge is power. Also, in the style of Thoughts on himself, stay tuned to the end and I'll show you how this one move can lead to a guaranteed 111 damage combo. Before I crack on with this guide, if you're interested in other guides and videos for new Tekken players, please check out the Tekken Guides playlist and consider subscribing to the channel. I have an upcoming guide all about sidestepping and sidewalking for new players, which I'll publish once I get over the 1000 subscriber milestone. Okay, so with all that YouTube shenanigans out of the way, let's talk about King's best move that new King players almost never use. Okay, I'm going to do a bit of roleplay now, giggity, and imagining I'm a new player, or a player who just wants to pick up King for the first time. So, I go through the move list and get to this. And I'd be like, oh, anyway. And so it would be easy to see how this move could be missed. So let me take a bit of time to explain why this move is so damn good. But, don't just take my word for it. Let's hear from the GOAT and the People's Champion himself.
It's the push. It's definitely the push. This move is it's definitely one of the best attacks on the game, and it's almost unreal, right?
So this move, like all moves, has three properties: for block, hit, and counter hit. Regardless of whether this move lands, it does no damage. So what's the point? Well, to see why this move is so good, we need to see the frames to understand it further. If you're unfamiliar with frames and frame data and want a really simple guide, please check out my Frames Explained Guide video. But for the sake of this video, when this move hits, it puts the opponent in a state where they can't push any buttons or block for a certain amount of time. On block, we're on 0, so basically it resets both players similar to when a round starts. On regular hit, we get +7 frames. Now nothing is guaranteed from this, but there are options that I'll go into later. However, on counter hit, this is when things get really interesting. On counter hit we get a whopping +18. So this means we can land certain moves on the opponent that they cannot duck or block. Now, I'll go back into the details of these options a bit later, including how it can lead to a massive combo, but first I just want to explain a bit more about why this move is so good, and in particular why it should be really good for new players in the low ranks. So if you're new to King or you're in the low ranks, you'll probably think to yourself, right, I have the best throws in the game and I can get over 100 points of damage from my chain grabs, so let's just throw everyone. Problem with that is that it will take new players about 30 seconds to realise that throws can be ducked, and if you keep mashing moves such as hop kicks or moves that crush highs, which Tekken 7 is full of by the way, then it's near impossible to win the match with throws alone. Now, I don't want to turn this into a King game plan guide, so I'll keep it very simple. The push is a mid, and so it will force people who are ducking out of crouch, and more importantly, it is extremely fast. So for players who are either ducking or spamming stuff in your face, this will shut all that nonsense right down until you either win by constantly scoring counter hits with this move, or you condition your opponent to stop trying to mash or duck. Just to show you how blindingly fast this move is, I set Arm King to do a down forward 1 into another down forward 1, which is a classic poke sequence. Now, watch what happens. So, if you learn when and where to place this move, you will lock your opponent down, stop them from ducking, and then you'll be able to get your throws started. So as I mentioned earlier, if you land the push, it will either be on block, hit, or counter hit. Let's look at what we can do with each option, starting with on block. So on block, you're both at 0, which means no one has an advantage, so you may want to block just to see what your opponent does. Or, if you get really good at this move, you may want to try another push, because it will pretty much beat anything outside of jabs or dick jabs. This is why this move is considered to be a bit of a bully move, because it stops your opponent using any big moves in retaliation, even on block. Next, let's look at the properties on hit. So on hit, you're at +7, with your opponent pushed slightly away from you. Now, nothing is guaranteed, but +7 is a really good amount of frames. You could try and continue your pressure with a quick mid or low poke, or, and this is what I like to do, this is a good chance to try and dash up and throw. If you have the execution, an ISW is a good option, or you can try and do a dash up and a giant swing. These have different throw breaks, but very similar animations. If they commit to another duck, you could just push them again and just repeat the process. Or you could try and do a crouch dash into a mid. Note that nothing is guaranteed here, but it's always worth trying to test your opponent's patience, or seeing whether they're mad enough to try and fight back at -7. Finally, let's look at the juicy stuff and what we get on counter hit, where we have +18 frames to play with. Just like on normal hit, you can use a chance to dash up and throw. The difference is now that if you're quick enough, and I do mean frame perfect, even if they try to duck, the ISW is guaranteed, so they will have to break the throw with a 1+2. Unfortunately, after albeit a little bit of limited testing, if they duck again, due to the spacing I couldn't land a giant swing or crouch dash throw, although these are options you may want to consider because you will have the frames to land them uninterrupted if your opponent doesn't duck. If however you want to score the guaranteed damage, the following moves are all guaranteed. Back 1-2, 1+2-1, forward 2-1, back 3 into leg drop. Which option you want to go for will depend on where you are in the stage and your execution. I won't go into all the techie details here, but I'll show you a couple of setups that are all 100% guaranteed from landing the counter hit. And I'll leave the links in the description for multiple videos from J King, who explains all these options in detail. Just to mention that this move does have one key weakness, and that's the range. So it's only really a good idea to use this move at say range 1 to 0, so basically very close, or if your opponent has their back against the wall. Okay, so now I've shown you exactly what this move has the potential to do. Let me show you how to practice using it. Now other characters have a similar shove type moves, but if we look at Negan's for example, he has a very obvious and easy mode way of knowing he's scored the counter hit. This is probably because Negan mains need all the help they can get, because they've probably got more teeth than brain cells.
God damn!
With King however, you need to be able to spot the difference between a normal hit or a counter hit. So my suggestion is you go into practice mode and choose Ling as your dummy. It doesn't have to be Ling, but I figured if you practice this with the smallest body in the game, if and when you land on a larger character, it will be much easier for you to see. So in short, practice on the smallest character first so everything else will be easier. Next, set your player properties to counter hit some of the moves. This will give you a random selection between normal hit and counter hit. Next, practice the shove and get used to spotting the animation difference with how the dummy does or doesn't stagger. Now, in order to practice this in practice mode, you need to set the dummy with the following settings. Set the CPU first action to stand, and then the second action to guard. This means you'll now only be able to land up any follow-up moves if the first hit was a counter hit. From here, just keep practicing until you get it into muscle memory, or when you know you can recognise the counter hit animation. As an optional extra, I would do the same drill again, but if I score a normal hit, practice hitting either an ISW or dash giant swing. If I score the counter hit, practice between forward 2-1 and back 3. Okay guys, so as promised, this is the combo you can land with the right circumstances. This will work with big body characters on the Forgotten Realms stage, and if you have the range. This combo is very similar on small body characters, but you won't get the extra long wall combo. Now, I know it's not exactly a death combo, but remember, we just scored all that damage from a safe mid that's quicker than a down forward 1. And when you put it like that, you can see why this move is arguably one of the strongest moves in Tekken 7, and if you're new to King, you really should abuse the hell out of it. Thanks for watching guys, I hope that's helped you new King players, and anyone who goes up against King. This move does take a little bit of practice to dial in, but when you have it down, this is a huge boost for King in terms of potential damage output, and more importantly, match control. If this video has helped you, please drop it a like so it will show up in more Tekken players' feeds. And if you don't want to miss any more guides, including my guide to side steps and side walks, be sure to subscribe. Thanks everyone, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.